how can we English Buddhism? So maybe all languages could be differentiated by how they conceptualize the world, and then how those conceptions can be instrumentalized in order to affect, participate, experience the world. And I met Suzuki Roshi, and that first meeting was I had various aspects, but one of them was, how am I going to do this, and how can it be shared? So creating Crestone Mountain Zen Center is part of trying to figure out how to share it with you. The first practice I did, which became something I could use as a teaching, was, as almost everyone knows who's practiced with me for a while, somewhere in 61 or so, 62, I began this phrase, there's no place to go and nothing to do. Now we're talking about language, and if you read a Sangha or anybody, in the end they start talking, it's really rooted in what you can do with language, or discovered how to undo language. Because language becomes the categories by which we know the world. And we should know the categories may be useful, but they're not real. They're only categories. If I expressed my gratefulness to Suzuki Roshi in a ceremony or something like that, I might thank him for bringing there here. And that's one thing he did show me. He talked once or twice a week on the 100 cases of the Heikigan Roku, and introduced me to how koans use phrases as antidotes to worldviews. Basically, they're capable of shifting your worldview. Now, one of the key cases, case 52 of the Book of Serenity. So I'm going to read this because I can. It's not very long. I can remember it, but if I remembered, I would disperse it mosaically throughout the. So maybe I'll make it more specific, because this is what we're dealing with. Now, you should listen to this as if it were something that you understood in English and could instrumentalize in your life, make part of your life, give it the purchase and explorative purchase that allows you to relate to it. Zhao Shan asked Elder De, the Buddha's true reality body. Well, first we should just get that far. The Buddha is a historical person, but what is his true reality body? Now, if you're practicing Zen, you don't get any farther than that phrases. You stay a lot of while. True reality body. True reality body. Do I have a true reality body? Do I have a true body? What's an untrue body? I mean, you really have to see if you can enter yourself into these words. If you can't, you're never going to understand the koan. You're just going to superficially think, Zhao Shan asked Elder De, the Buddha's true reality body. Whoa, And then he says, it's like space. It is? Is my body like space? Okay, it's like space. It manifests form in response to beings. So the true reality body is not only like space, it's like space in it manifests form in response to beings. Do you feel yourself manifesting form? It manifests form in response to beings, like the moon in the water. Now, all of these statements are coded. They're coded not because they're trying to, be the CIA or something. They're coded because, one, there's all language requires an effort. So if this is requiring an effort to explore a true reality body, then the moon's pretty obviously a code for mind and a metaphor which it's not just a substitute for mind, it's a metaphor. When you see the moon, you can feel the tides, the still water. The water becomes waves. Language are kind of like the waves of mind. And if you can feel the waves of mind, perhaps you can feel the mind, the still mind. So in the words, the waves of mind, the stillness is there. Like even the water is the waves are made of water, and the waves are returning to stillness. That's the shape of a wave, is water returning to stillness. So this kind of metaphor is useful because you can begin to feel your thinking through Dharma practice, through the birth canal of Zazen, you can begin to feel thought returning to stillness. So you don't have to get rid of the thought. So much Western American practice is about getting rid of thoughts. No, practice is to find that tonality where the thoughts themselves return to stillness. So Saoshan says, well, how do you explain the principle of response? How do you explain the principle of response? And then you can ask yourself, what would you say? Well, what Elder De did say, according to the Sung Dynasty version of the story, is, well, Saoshan says, you said a lot, but only 80%. So De retorts, or comes back and says, well, what about you, teacher? And Saoshan says, it's like the well looking at the donkey. So again, going back, what did I learn from Baker Roshi? He, as I said, I might gratefully bow to his photograph there on the altar and say, thank you for bringing there here. Because that's the dynamic of what I was doing. I was extremely busy. I had a little baby. I had a job. I was a full-time graduate student at the University of California and a full-time employee of the university. So I, had not much time. I have to do that. I have to do this. It's still going on right now, I have to do this. That's a there. Do is a there. It's over there, I have to do this somewhere. So I tried to bring the there-ness of something to do to hear. So I used, every time there was a there-ness, I turned it into a here-ness. Now that's the dynamic of koan practice. It's the dynamic of phrases. We are developing a Dharma Sangha curriculum that how to teach practice. We've got to see how a very basic thing in English, now I don't know how to do it in German, I'll leave that up to Nicole and others. In English, we have to figure out how to bring there-ness to here-ness. Because if it can be brought to here-ness, it can be brought to stillness as the waves return to the water. So here-ness has the possibility of stillness in it, but there-ness doesn't. Okay, so then every time I thought, I have to do this, I thought, there's nothing to do. This is also like a Zen phrase, the shadowless trees. Shadowless trees is an obvious means time has stopped. So it's a metaphor for time has stopped. And you can use the metaphor because you can suddenly feel, stop, I'm walking on a street in San Francisco. The trees are there, the buildings are there. And I just stop. There's nothing to do. And I occasion it. In other words, it's not just an idea, there's nothing to do. No, I stop and actually experience nothing to do. If I don't experience nothing to do, nothing changes. So you have to have a kind of incubatory, pausal dynamic in your activity. So many people do practice with no place to go and nothing to do, I know. They tell me, but did they actually stop and feel themselves stopped? Otherwise, it's just a game.